technology. Welcome. My name is Corinne Bombin, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer and Deputy City Manager for the City of Prince Rupert. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this evening's event, and also to introduce Chief Alex Campbell, who will be giving our traditional welcome.
First, start off with my own language. Simgiget. Simgiget. Sigaram hanano. Legakiget. Kabawalsik. Khani kabat kur. Lewanda some wab. Tars at nurse. Well, got khoidism. And Lachuba. Xtamos on that. Chimshan. Lachwaka. Lachwalams. At a matlachata. Wait, sit down. Ladies and gentlemen, chiefs, matriarchs, house chiefs, prince and princess, and all the people of Prince Rupert, I stand here on behalf of the 9 tribes of Lachwalams and Metlakatla, BC, to welcome you all in this beautiful land, where we can have a good discussion, a good meeting, fun time, getting to know one another. We say to each and every one of you right now, you're welcome. The mat is rolled out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. So now it is my pleasure to introduce the host and your presenter for this evening's State of the City, Mayor Lee Brain.
Thank you, Alex. Welcome, everyone. Lots of people here tonight. I really appreciate you coming out and hearing this firsthand. This is about 8 years of work culminated to a new vision for Prince Rupert, and we're going to do an update tonight on pretty much every single thing that's happening in this community. I promise you there's something for everybody in this presentation tonight. I have taken the collective consciousness of the entire town and have poured it into this presentation this evening, and if it's not there at the Q&A, you can certainly tell me that I missed something tonight. Okay, so tonight, lots of ground to cover, so we'll get right into it. Actually, I'm going to take my glasses off because it's glaring on me. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the negative part, which is our ongoing infrastructure and revenue challenges. And then we're going to talk about the good stuff, which is the 2030 vision and all the projects that are happening right now in the community. And then we're going to finish it off with some opportunities in the path ahead. And at the end, there's going to be an announcement, small A announcement. So we'll get started. Okay, so moving this for a second. In 2014, when we got elected, this community was basically on the verge of bankruptcy. I remember the first 3 days on the job, myself and the city manager at the time, Bob Long, did 2 12-hour days. We went through absolutely everything, and we were basically a year or 2 away from the books basically folding up and the province taking over this community. We were at a $90,000 a month burn rate with Watson Island. We had 2 legal suits on the island, almost costing us over $1 million just in one of the legal suits. Everybody remembers that time. Things weren't good. We didn't really have any direction. We had massive infrastructure challenges. We didn't really have a vision for the community, so we had to figure out a program to dig this community basically out of the hole. You know, one of the things I want to say here tonight is, you know, not to make too much of a generational issue here, but folks in my generation or younger have never really known Prince Rupert in really a successful state. There's the heyday of Rupert, and folks in the older generation will always talk about, how great things were and the fishing and all that stuff. But folks in my generation, we just woke up one day in high school and the community was already collapsing. Our friends left town. Their parents lost their jobs. People lost their home. And by the time I graduated high school, which was in 2003, it basically felt like there was no hope and you should just leave community and go to university and do something else. So for us, in our generation, Prince Rupert doesn't have the same, nostalgia, I would say. So when I became mayor, part of that was to try to get the whole community to come back together again and say, look, it's time for a new vision, it's time for a new pride, and the council and city staff and community partners coming together. And over the last 8 years, we've really turned the ship to a brand new direction. We're not talking about the mill anymore, which is great, and we're talking about the future now. So today we're going to outline that. So the first thing we did was the Hayes 2.0 blueprint presentation. Some of you might have come to that presentation in 2018. And we created a model for how we were going to organize the community. So we needed a program for infrastructure renewal, which we branded Rebuild Rupert. We needed a program for community engagement and creating a new vision, which we called Redesign Rupert. We needed to highlight our economic opportunities through becoming a global community through our port operations and Watson Island opportunities. We needed to brand our partnerships and our sustainable city, and that's what the Hayes 2.0 model was really all about. Was about organizing the community into some compartments and start to piece out our priorities. So at the Hayes 2.0 blueprint presentation, I outlined the infrastructure challenges, our revenue challenges, what was really the problem at that point, and then what happened from that point forward is we initiated the Redesign Rupert partnership with DP World, Community Futures, Raymont Logistics, the Port of Prince Rupert, the City of Prince Rupert, and we came together and said, look, this community, to have a world-class port, needs to have a world-class community. And both of those things need to grow side by side. Port and all the industries are facing the same challenges that many people are facing. Housing shortage, workforce retention, employment, those kinds of things. So we came together and we hired Larry Beasley and Associates. Larry Beasley was a long-time Vancouver city planner for 30 years, one of the top urban designers in the world. He actually built Abu Dhabi and the Emirates from scratch. These are the top people, and we hired him and his team to come here in 2019, and we did a one-year-long process with nonprofits and community groups and the residents, and we created a new vision for this community, which we did a presentation at in December 13 of 2019, which some of you may have come to that presentation here, where we launched the Rupert 2030 plan. And we did 4,000 engagements with that process with the community and really came to a consensus of these are the priorities, these are the things this community needs to do to move forward. And then the pandemic hit right after that presentation. And it may seem like there might have been momentum loss, but I think after tonight you're going to see we haven't put our foot off the gas, and actually the program is moving forward. So Hayes 2.0 has kind of morphed now into the Rupert 2030 plan, and that is the framework in which we are moving forward as a community. So first up is our challenges. So far since 2015, we've raised about $100 million for infrastructure development for the community, and it's our 100% most significant challenge. The truth is, we should have started this program well back in the 70s. We should have started saving for water. We should have started saving for waste treatment. We shoulda. But the truth is, we're here now. And we're basically starting from scratch with no reserves, no savings, and a really challenging situation for us. So here's where we're at. This is the truth, the honest truth of it all. Is we're at a $600 million infrastructure deficit. So we need $600 million bucks, and I'll get into how much we need right now later to really get on top of things. But I'm going to go through some of these items here, and then we're going to go into the funner stuff. But I think it's important that this community really feels the weight of what the situation really is here. That really has nothing to do with politics. and has everything to do with making sure we actually are successful for the long-term future. And just to note that some of these are not even eligible for grants. So there's no way to raise money for roads, for example, other than straight cash out of our pockets. So here's the breakdown. 30% roads, 34% wastewater, 13% community assets, and 23% water is the overall infrastructure deficit. That's $200 million for wastewater, $180 million for roads, $75 million for community assets, and that doesn't include the rec center, and $135 million for the water system. So let's talk about roads for a second. So our road situation is wonderful. There's my joke for the evening. They're not good. The roads were not built correctly, actually. They were built with McNichol Creek fill across the harbor that has high salt content and corrodes the pipes. That's why we have ski slopes in the town. We have whole neighborhoods that were built on hog fuel that are sinking into the ground. And we know a lot of those neighborhoods that are having major issues. We just had McBride, a 102-year-old pipe just collapsed on us, and we ended up having to rip up the entire road to make sure we just got it done. When we got it, when you're ripping up a road, there's nothing that's frustrating more than ripping up the same road twice. And so we said, look, let's get it all done. And, that costs $1 million. That's just $1 million out of nothing. We have to take a short-term borrowing, $850,000, which we're going to pay through Legacy, which I'll get into Legacy later. And hopefully that doesn't get onto the taxpayer. But the truth is, it's $1 million for every 100 meter of road. And we can't just pave the roads anymore. In fact, the roads are now a capital issue. Every road in town has to be ripped up from scratch, has to be complete new substrata. All the pipes and servicing and utilities have to be completely replaced underneath, and it has to be all redone from scratch. Paving is basically useless at this point. It's just patchwork. And right now we managed to double the roads budget to $1 million a year, but the roads budget needs to be getting to $6 to $8 million a year minimum to keep a basic maintenance. The truth is, we need at least $90 million injection right now to get the roads to a baseline standard, and then you need to pump another $6 to $8 million a year into the roads to make sure the roads can actually be maintained. We aren't even close to doing that. This is something we have to do on our own. Unless we can tie it into waste treatment and do piping work with grants and we rip up the roads to replace pipes, we might be able to do some of that. And I'll give you an example. Overlook Street. Overlook Street alone is a $10 million rebuild. There's no point in paving that road. It needs to be completely redone. $10 million. Up at Crestview there, not Crestview, that's the one I'm thinking of, by the water system there. Crestview, yeah. That's another road. That road, that place, that area, all hog fuel, same issue. Millions of dollars. People say to me, when are you going to do that road? Well, that's not going to be part of the paving budget. And I'm sorry, but it's just not. We need to raise the capital to do that. The truth is, like I said, we need $90 million at least to do some big projects for the road. So that's just something I think the community needs to hear. This isn't a bad planning thing from the city. This isn't a budgeting issue from the city. This is just what it is. And that's going to be probably one of our biggest challenges moving forward, is raising that kind of capital without burdening the taxpayer. And we'll show you how we've been creative by doing huge projects and saving the taxpayers from the burden. But roads, huge issue. Okay, wastewater, $200 million. As you know, all of our waste from the toilets go right to the ocean. There's 13 outflows. We are federally mandated to cap all those outflows. We just applied for an extension, and we got approved to a 2030 timeline. Yeah, Richard? Yep. 2030, we got some time. And what that would entail is twinning off every single line in town. Right now we have one line. You'd have to have a sewer line and a storm line. Once again, you're ripping up all the roads, you're twinning off all the lines. Massive, massive infrastructure challenge. Our most expensive option. However, we may have found a solution to save the community well over $100 million on this, and there's going to be a video after this. But Mr. Pucci, our Director of Operations, and our city management team have been researching new wastewater treatment methodologies. They went over to the East Coast and met some communities there on some of the waste treatment they were doing, and we were actually going to be pursuing a new, innovative, kind of sustainable approach to waste treatment. And so what that looks like, so this is the Amanika area here. We're going to do a pilot project behind Amanika, where we're going to do a natural wetland solution where we actually use nature to treat the waste. And we'll have many of these all over the community in different neighborhoods. There's no smell, there's no odor, it looks like a park, and it's something you can actually visit and you wouldn't even know what it is. So there's a lot of bonuses to this. So this next video will kind of explain to you how that would work. So just to finish off on that note then, so if we didn't do that approach, we'd have a variety of concrete treatment facilities along the waterfront, massive costs, massively mechanical projects as well, which take a lot of upkeep, so maintenance and operations are a big cost as well. This, you'd have a variety of those wetlands all over the community in different areas. They would all treat the waste. You have one section that basically for 30 years collects the waste and then it transfers over to the next one. This breaks down over 30 years, then this one takes over and it kind of goes back and forth, and it's a sustainable solution for the long term. We've applied for 2 grants from the Feds and the UBCM, and we're looking at a $6 million pilot project. Ultimately, that cost of that project is probably anywhere between 80 to 100 million. But it won't be 200 to 250 million if we prove that the pilot project is successful. So that's a good news thing right now for the community, as best news as we can get. And thank you to Mr. Pucci, who's been doing a lot of work on that file. So next, everyone's favorite topic is water infrastructure. Yeah, I'll go back. Oops. Okay, so the water situation. So when we took office, there was always a priority for water in the community. Okay, I'm going to say that. The previous council made it a priority. The previous council before that made it a priority. The challenge was getting the project moving and getting the income you needed to get that first phase done. So the water project is 3 phases. The first phase, well, let me explain what the water supply situation is. If you know where Seal Cove is, across from Seal Cove, you take a boat, goes to Schwatton Lake. You used to have to get into a truck. That truck would drive you to an ATV. That ATV then would take you to a trail, and then you'd have to hike 2 kilometers through a muddy trail to the dam to access the dam, and some of our workers would have to do that a couple times a week to go service the dam. Now what we done under the first phase was build a road all the way up to the dam and cleared the whole thing out and built retaining walls and structures to make sure that we can get there. And then all the original lines were above ground on next to slopes basically, and they could have slides hit those lines. So we replaced all the original 100-year-old lines, and we buried them with new pipe that can last like 120 plus years, and that's all underground now. And that was the first phase of the water project, which we completed in 2018. Now that we can access the dam, the second phase was actually building a brand new dam. So the second phase is the dam being built. Now, when all of this is happening, we had to cut off the town from Woodworth Lake, which is our primary water supply, which is like at a higher elevation. Now we have a secondary water supply near the ocean called Schwatlands Lake, which is also at a much lower grade and also on the edge of a slope as well. So anytime it rains, debris gets into Schwatlands, and because we don't have a water filtration, as you've been noticing, there's been these boil water notices because we have no chance to, we have to flush the system basically and let it clear itself out. And that's what the challenge has been basically this entire time while this is being built. We had really no choice in the matter. That's the only way to service it, because people say, well, why didn't you do treatment first? Well, if the pipes on the water supply end bust and we lose access to water, it won't matter. There won't be any water to treat. So you have to get that part first done, and then you do the water treatment. So that is why we've been in that situation. So now at phase 2, the dam is now complete, officially complete. And at the end of this month or early August, we're allowing the reservoir to come back up, and we will be redistributing back to the main water supply. And that will most likely, 99%, end most of our boil water issues, that kind of thing. So we'll be back on the primary water supply. Yay! Now, there's a video after this. You're going to see massively challenging terrain, like the worst terrain to work in. Just absolutely the worst terrain to work in. It's been a massive challenge for this community for that phase 2. Once phase 2 is complete, then we move into phase 3, which is already concurrently going on, and that is the designing of the water treatment plant, and then the execution of the construction of that, which is anticipated to begin between 2023 and 2024. Once that's complete, then we have a brand new water distribution system, and that'll last us for 100 plus more years, and we'll have like pretty much the top state-of-the-art water system you can get anywhere on the planet Earth. Now, one thing I do want to mention too is people are always saying, like, you know, all of a sudden the water's bad, all of a sudden the water's bad. Well, theoretically, it's not actually all of a sudden bad. The challenge that happened is that there's been new regulations that have been put into place with what's acceptable to be allowed in the water supply. And since 2010, that has been getting more strict and more strict and more strict. And so we have to report now when there's a certain level of micron of bacteria in the water, and it has to be reported no matter what now. Back in the day, you didn't have to do that. So it's the same coastal water. The difference is the regulations now require notice to the community that there is these challenges. So that is why you're hearing more about it at this point, and we have no choice on that. We operate, but we don't regulate. They tell us when we have to make these notices. So that's some of the situation we've been in. So, you know, we apologize if there's been undue stress for that, but there's no other way to go about this project than the way we've been doing it. And it's going to be done by 2024, end of 2024, and we will have that part complete. So this next video is going to show you a bit of an overview. You're going to see some of the terrain and just see some of how that challenge looked. Okay, this slide's first. Okay, so before I get into the video, so since 2015, this is how many water breaks and services we've had basically all over the entire, in the community. So there's two sections of the water. There's the distribution system, which is out on the Schwatland side, and then it goes up to Crestview and gets up there. But then there's the in-town distribution system, and that, we haven't even talked about replacing all of that on top of where the supply comes from. We have 4 services a week and 1 main break a month. I think it's something like highest per capita in the country in terms of how bad our water system is. The water, all the pipes are 100+ years old. It's not a good situation. Okay, here's the video. Okay, so that's our water system. And just a final note on the water system, again, just like the roads, we need to try to get a capital injection to do a big chunk of the in-town portion to get those pipes to in critical areas up to date so that we can get on top of the issue. Right now, it's very much patchwork. McBride is the perfect example of the situation that we're in, and we're going to have more of that, and we need to make sure that we can get on top of that long term. Otherwise, it's going to be that over and over and over again, and we can't just keep budgeting for those types of issues long term. Okay, so the landfill. Landfill has been another big issue for this community. We have been at a stalemate because our landfill had reached capacity. Basically, when I came into this position with council, we were reaching that capacity, and we basically were getting full right when we started, and there was never really a plan long term about expanding the landfill. So the landfill has a 2-part situation. One is waste diversion and actually reducing waste. The other is actually expanding the landfill so we can increase capacity for the next 30, 40 years. So we've completed that now. It's 100% done. It was a $13 million project. We also implemented curbside recycling now, which has actually been very successful and is starting to really divert waste from the landfill. Now, the thing that the landfill has done, and that some of the policies that we've done to update, is that the buildings that you see downtown that are sitting there, and all of us know they're eyesores, and you're wondering, why isn't anyone doing about that? Why aren't they tearing down those buildings? Why does this town look like the way it does? It's because we actually couldn't take those buildings into the landfill, and there was nowhere to put them. And so it's been a timing issue for the community, is that we had to get this done. So now what you're going to see is we have a variety of buildings and homes that are actually scheduled to be taken down. We have a new policy now. Buildings have to be stripped to their bare materials and recycled the best they can. We don't just throw a whole building into the dump like we used to. And so that's going to be a lot more of efficient, cost-saving thing for the community. Again, to Mr. Pucci and his team for brilliantly executing that. It's now another thing that we can finally get the community moving forward for, but that was one of the reasons why we haven't been able to move forward with the revitalization piece. So that's going to start to accelerate a lot for this community, and the goal is to become a zero waste community long term. So the next program would be to introduce curbside composting, a green bin long term, And yeah, exactly, right? And that way, then you can start to divert the food scraps and things like that. And then eventually we just have, that's why we started with the little garbage cans, which I know has been very controversial to this community. However, if you would like a bigger can, you can call operations and we'll get you a bigger can. But, you know, it's, the whole point is we shouldn't be producing that much waste as a community. So zero waste is now a new strategy to become a much more sustainable community. Oh, this thing is touchy. Okay, another controversial decision I think that people are wondering about. You all have seen that we have acquired the old GM dealership to put Public Works there, and I've heard a lot of feedback like, why are you doing that? So let me explain. This was Public Works. Public Works was in a health and safety issue. In fact, it was an unsafe working environment completely. There was actually lines on the ground where you had to walk within the lines so that you were in the unsafe zones in the complex. We brought in some ATCO trailers as a kind of a makeshift. Those started failing right away. The reality was that this is a problem that was left for so long. And when you're in the community, you don't think of this as a priority, but us as an organization, we need a safe workplace for our workers. We need a place where they can actually have pride in their workplace. And we had to do something. We're at critical failure with that. So it was either spend $8 million of money we don't have, because you know it needs to go into roads and water and waste treatment, and build a new Capitol building and find a site and clear a site and do all that, or do something more efficient. And that's where the GM opportunity came up, because now we're doing a lease to own opportunity with that building. The service bay fits our fire trucks, and there's a lot of things that worked with that building for us. It was sitting there for 2 years, and we needed to make action, and that is actually going to save this community money, and it means we don't have to do a massive capital project. And we're going to use both yards. This will be still used for equipment, things like that, but that'll be the new Public Works facility, and that is why we moved forward with this. It was something that must happen, and when you're in a position like this, if someone gets hurt on that, I'm not going to be a person that sits there and watches someone get hurt because I can't make a decision on getting them a new building. So city staff came up with a creative solution, and I think it was the right choice for this community to go in that direction. And I hope, after hearing that, you believe so too. Okay, another challenge, the RCMP station. Gina Garon's in the audience, right? She knows all about this issue, because this is a 20-year issue, and it's no fault to the councils, I would say. The problem with this situation has been the RCMP has never agreed on the location. Anytime there was a location brought up, they didn't like the location. There was new rules after 9/11 on where police stations can be located, and there was this big back and forth for years about location. And eventually, we met with the commissioner. He came from Ottawa. We just said, look, either you're going to build a station underwater or you're going to find a location. This is another mandated project. We have no choice in the matter to do this. They can go ahead and build this themselves at any spec they want and send us the bill, and we would be forced to pay for it. And so in our view, having control over the location and the design allows us to control the costs. So if you look at Prince George, for example, they built a super fancy RCMP station. It cost well over $60 million. That wasn't our approach on this. As Councillor Niche would say, no fancy lines on the building. So that's what we're doing. And we just completed the loan authorization for $25 million. And so this will be up to $25 million cost. We've already put the money aside for the loan, and I'll talk about that after. There might be a small tax increase next year to finish off that. It's going to be about $1.5 million a year-ish payments for the loan. But this was something that we have no choice on. So that's the location. We managed to work a deal out to do a little bit of a land swap, drop the cost of acquiring the building, the old Jehovah's Witness building, And this is all going to come down. This will be the whole site here, like this. It will also go right to the front, to 3rd Avenue. There'll be some beautification there. And it's going to be built, reasonably at a budget that this community can handle. And so that's going to be a project that's finally moving forward. And it's one of those challenges that we just had to take care of. Okay, the next one, which we haven't talked about before, is our fire hall. Our fire hall has seismic upgrades that are needed. It's in a very poor location. It was built in the 50s, and it wasn't built to today's standards, and we actually have to custom order fire trucks so they can fit into the actual bays. So this has to go, basically, unfortunately. And so now we're in the process of that. We've been doing some site surveys, we've been doing some initial designs, and probably next year you'll hear more about what's going to happen with fire. We have a lot of industrial growth actually happening as well. Discussions with the industry that they're going to need more fire suppression opportunities. So fire emergency service is going to be a big part of this community's growth, and we need to set up for the future, and this is just one of those kind of have-to-haves as well. And none of this, the reason why I'm putting all this first, because none of this is anything sexy about this. There's nothing fun about it. There's nothing exciting about it. This is just the weight of this town, and I'm hoping you're feeling that weight that we feel sometimes, but we'll get into the fun stuff here shortly. Next challenge, huge challenge, housing. So, I have a lot to say on housing. I'll try to be quick. Okay, let me tell you about our challenge. Rupert's challenge with housing is that we don't have ready, available, developable land. We have muskeg as our foundation, and it costs huge costs to dig up that muskeg, and in some places you're digging down 30 feet to find rock, and it can cost upwards to $1 million just to clear a site and make it flat. So when people are like, well, Terrace is doing this, no. Well, Terrace has ready available land, and they have a huge sprawl. We are not like that. We are an island, we're a coastal community, and we have that other issue. That is the number one issue for developers. That is the number one issue for why it's challenging to build housing here. We hosted a developer conference in October 2020. We brought a bunch of developers around the province and even from across Canada here, toured them around sites, showed them the opportunities. And even the developers are like, you know what, we see the opportunity, but for them to mobilize a crew up here, because there's no workers right now, just FYI, there is no one to work in this community anymore. Everybody is fully tapped, and we'll talk about that after. To get materials up here, and for them to make some income on top of that, it's a big risk for them. So part of our job as a community is to de-risk housing so that developers will want to come here and develop. Prince Rupert needs 2,000 to 3,000 new housing units by 2030. If we don't start developing, a couple hundred units per year, there is no growth. The port is not going anywhere. These projects will not expand. There is nowhere for people to live. They will be flying in their workers, and that is already happening. There is workers coming in from Terrace, from Stewart to work at DP World. They've already cannibalized the entire workforce of the town. There's no one else to tap. We're actually in a bad problem that way. And unless we massively expand housing to be able to recruit and retain new people to the community, as well as the existing people to the community, we're going to be stuck on the expansion process. But there's solutions, and we're going to show you that here in a moment. Okay, so what have we been doing? This map here is a map. Oh, smokes. Oh, you're not supposed to see my secret graph yet. Well, now you know the rest of this. You see the money signs there, right? Okay, so these are big circles on a map, and this is where we have state the obvious. So these are new areas that we've identified as new housing areas. So we're talking new subdivisions, massive strokes of land down by Westview area here, by the Seal Cove area here, and the infilling of the downtown. What we've been able to assess is that downtown alone can actually fit 1,000 new residents infilling the downtown. And the idea is to actually infill and not expand out. And so we've put a lot of housing properties up on the market now. The city has. In fact, we're putting like as many properties as we possibly can up on the market now. We've transferred these big subdivisions to our Legacy Corporation. Legacy has more flexibility on giving option agreements to developers to be able to give them an opportunity on a long-term plan for building housing. See, when developers come here, they're going to want to like have the opportunity to say, well, do I have a 5-year plan for Rupert? I don't want to just come here for a month and then, you know, maybe or maybe not make any money and then leave, right? They still need to make money. And on top of the fact that we need to do affordable housing, which is what we primarily have been building as affordable housing, working with BC Housing. And we'll get into where those projects are at. But what we've done at the city right now is we passed a tax exemption bylaw for housing in the downtown. So now you don't, if you're building new in the downtown, 10-year tax exemptions. If you're doing renovations, 5-year tax exemptions. We've waived all permits fees, all building fees, all rezoning applications. We basically have made secondary suites allowable on every zone now. So anyone can build a secondary suite to increase housing, their housing options in single-family homes in anywhere in the town. We've put a 15-point action plan together for housing, and we also passed a renoviction bylaw now too to prevent renters from being renovicted out of their places, to have some protections there, but also not overly burdensome to the homeowner as well, or the building owners. So we think we found a balance with that. So we've been doing everything we can to set the scene for housing in this community. There's another slide here. No, I think it's just this one. Okay, so I'll show you where we are looking at doing some development. So we've been focusing on affordable housing. We know we need seniors housing in this community. So sort of the projects that we're looking at is a place for seniors to own smaller condos where they can sell their homes. Many who have homes on Graham Avenue, that type of thing, be able to downsize and be able to retire in place. It's something that's not set up for Prince Rupert. So when you're talking to folks who are seniors, they either have the option of moving somewhere else, or we need to create an option for them to stay in this community. So that's something we're looking at. We're looking at building family homes, affordable homes, and supportive housing as well. So right now, currently what's on the docket, we have 192 units at McKay Street that are going to be redone there. We have 28 units going at Great Crescent, 60 units at the new Digby Towers, which is almost complete. We just approved 70 units at Lac Willam's housing on 11th Avenue. We're just about to complete with Silversides and build 28 new homes in a subdivision up in Silversides. And then we have helped with the Crow's Nest Lodge and the Raffles building, which will be 84 supportive housing units. And Raffles as well will be a 24-hour-a-day open event there, so people don't have to leave anymore when they leave the shelter. So we're tackling, I think that would be a good solution for the community. So we're tackling the entire housing spectrum all at once. And right now we can confirmly say the number is about 460 units are currently underway for the Rupert. And if you think about it at 3,000 is the mark, then that's kind of where we are at right now. We're at 460 of 3,000 that need to be built. And it's going to be like a couple hundred at a time, and then what happens is we're going to create a natural market for the community where it will just make sense to come to Rupert. Banks won't even give developers loans to build in Rupert because there's no benchmark for them to place it from, because we haven't built any homes since the early 2000s or late 90s. So developers can't even get funding, so we need to be creative and working with places like the credit union, for example, to be able to give loans out to these developers to come and do that. The other challenge is we have nowhere to put the muskeg. When you dig up that dirt, it is massively expensive to get rid of. The city, I'll give credit here to Councillor Niche. His whole thing was we need to find a hole and we need to be able to fill that hole with muskeg. And I think we're on to that now. Mr. Pucci, our Director of Operations, we found a site. We're doing some assessments. If we can open up a dumping ground for soil, that will massively accelerate the opportunity for housing. So what we need to try to do as a community with partners from industry, partners from wherever we can find them, is to try to start prepping these lands. Start clearing them and getting them ready and serviced and flat. Because that's more enticing to build, and it's much cheaper to build affordable housing when it's already ready to go. And I'll give you an example. Crow's Nest Lodge, which is out on the highway, next time you drive out on Park Avenue and you see Crow's Nest, which is next to the women's shelter, take a look at the foundation. Take a look at how big the mound is to put that modular housing on there. It's something like $1 million it costs to dig deep and get that foundation set just to put modular housing on there. That's how expensive it can be to build housing. That was a BC Housing project with partnership with the city, but it's done. So those are some of the macro issues with housing, and I think we've been working with developers who are very keen to come up here, and I think we're going to be hitting the mark, and we already have these projects underway, and I know probably past this term, but you'll be hearing some more announcements soon about housing on many fronts. There we go. Okay, next challenge is childcare. So childcare and housing and retention and recruitment are all one package, I would say. We have lost doctors to childcare. We have lost nurses because of childcare. We have lost teachers because of childcare. There is no more childcare in the community. People are not taking the jobs here because they have no childcare. And then when they come here, they're having a hard time to find a place to live on top of it. So the double whammy is if you can't take care of someone's kids who are infants and you can't find them a place to live, well, they're not going to come and take the job. So this is another challenge for the community. It's not necessarily the city's challenge, but it's the community's challenge. We did a needs assessment. We need a minimum of 50 spaces to open up, and we're actually working with the North Coast Community Services Society on a license of occupation for a site across from Roosevelt, and we're going to give it for $1 for 20 years, and they're actually going to move ahead with trying to build a child care and child development center on that site. So we're working with community partners. The school district's also doing a lot of action on child care. We're working all together to try to really solve this problem, coupling with the housing problem, so that we can start to recruit and retain people into the community. What does this all mean? We need cash. I'm just going to say this straight now, because as you probably know, I ain't running for re-election again, and I think this town just needs to hear this. So we need $200 million injection into this town right now. We need a bag of money to fall from the sky, and it needs to fall into this community, and that number needs to be $200 million. At minimum, it needs to be $100 million. We need to catch up because right now, with the limitations of taxation and the municipal financing model, which I'll get into later, with the fact that everything is with grants and applications, we're just not going to catch up. It's just not happening, and we need a magical thing to happen, and we are working on a major plan right now with that, and we've been lobbying heavily with the province and the feds, letting them know that you want that port to go, you need to invest in the actual community, because all the grants are going into the port infrastructure, and the community is not getting it, and that just has to happen. So on top of the injection that we need, the magical injection, we also need to increase our revenue. We need to increase our revenue, operating revenue, by a minimum of $10 million a year, but ideally $20 million a year. So we need 100 to 200 million injection, and then we need to increase the budget by 10 to 20 million to maintain the services and to grow the community. As I mentioned, the roads budget right now was at $480,000 since 1995. Only 2 years ago did we double that to $1 million. And I'm telling you that needs to be $8 million a year just to be a baseline. So we need $8 more million a year just for road maintenance, not even including all the other things and building and revitalization. So 20 million is a conservative amount we need to do. And I'm going to show you later how I think we can pull that off. But that is the truth of this town. You know, people blame us for, we don't know how to budget. No, that's not what this is. This is a This is a town that was neglected and it collapsed, and it's just dealing with a massive infrastructure deficit. And to raise that kind of capital, we aren't even going to get to taxes on that at this point. Okay, so we need cash. Why don't we have cash? Why? Well, we don't have cash because we're not allowed to collect cash, actually. The provincial government stops us from collecting money from the industries. And it is absolutely frustrating that we have a handcuff on the community, that we can't grow this community because we have a handcuff that we've been placed on it from us. And I'll tell you how much effort I put into this file. I'll tell you, like, I organized every single community that had the same impact, all the mayors down south. We lobbied both the BC Liberals, BC NDP. We did song and dance. I put pom-poms on. Like, we did everything. And they haven't moved on that. And there's some reasons I probably shouldn't say it publicly, but this challenge, the Port Property Tax Act, is the number one reason why this community is stuck. We are stuck, and we're not allowed to be free. Our one legislative right is taxation. That's the only mechanism we're allowed to have under the Local Government Act and the Community Charter, is to collect money through taxation. And we have a rural place that says, no, on any marine export industry, you can only collect a certain amount, $22.50 per $1,000 assessment. So, here's this secret graph. I'm going to explain this graph to you. Red line is residential taxes. Yellow is the port capped taxes. This teal line is the small business taxes. And this white line is the non-capped industries. So let me explain what this means. 2008-ish, 7, DP World or Mar Terminals invested. There's that investment. Then, because they have a capped amount, every year the asset depreciates, and because the city is not allowed to adjust the rate, we lose taxes every year from those industries. And it only goes up anytime there's a little investment from the industries. And if you've seen over the last few years, there's been consistent investments, and as long as there's more investments, that number goes up. But once the investments stop, it starts to go down. Now, that declining revenue here has to go somewhere. You can't, if it's depreciating every year, and we have to maintain a city budget, and right now, every community in Canada has to do a 2 to 3% tax increase a year just to keep up with inflation and fuel costs and things like that. It's just a baseline, unless you can generate more revenue to get ahead of that rate. But that burden has gone on to the residents. The residents pay astronomically more taxes than small business and all of these guys together. And so I'll give you an example of why the tax cap's a very unfair legislation. Is if you see this white line here, in 2018 we had Pembina and Alta Gas coming online for the community, 2 propane facilities, both of which do not qualify for the capped taxes. Okay, they don't qualify for that. We control that rate. That rate is abnormally large because we have to make up the difference of this. And see how fast that spiked up? They pay more, those 2 industries alone, than all the other port industries combined, basically. So we now place the burden on them, we place the burden on our residents, and we place the burden. See, they're almost touching. Small business pays almost the same as the major industries in this community. This is highway robbery. Sorry. It's what it is. It's 8 years of me trying to solve this problem with our staff, and we're getting nothing from the province on this. It's a provincial government issue. They need to be lobbied, and this community needs to let them know this is not fair. Now, one of the solutions that we're hopefully coming up with is that Rupert in particular is the most impacted by the legislation. Only 8 municipalities in BC are affected by this, but because all of our industries are basically marine export industries, most of them get capped. We are looking to do a Rupert-only solution with them so that we leave Lower Mainland together, and politically the government can do whatever they need to do to help us out. Because if we don't free this up, then we can't control the rate. These two graphs, the white and yellow, need to come together as one, and we need to be able to adjust it so that the residential rate gets back down to there, the business rate gets to there, and there's a moderate, heavy lifting from the industries so that we can raise some more capital from them, which won't charge them much more a year in taxes once it all combines. But that has to happen for this county to move forward. The next council is going to be dealing with that, and I hope the next council after that's not dealing with that. But until this problem's solved, that's why we can't have the water, that's why we can't get the roads, that's why we can't get moving. So, I'm not here to dump on the industries. It's not necessarily the industry's fault. I just want to make sure that that's clear. Because we wouldn't be moving forward as a community without the port growth, okay? We wouldn't be, right? We need their investment, we need their growth, and they are going to help us, and I'm going to explain at the end the rainbow of how we're going to all fix, and the clouds are going to part, and this town's going to sail off into the sunset. But you need to know the reality. That's the reality. Did I do a good job, Corinne? She's shaking her head no. Okay. Revenue challenge, last revenue challenge, and then we're moving on to the good stuff. Ferry, airport ferry. So right now we have an airport ferry. We're the only municipality in the country that runs a ferry to an airport, costing us $1.5 million a year. And the city is now looking to divest themselves from this service. And when I say divest ourselves, I mean transferring it to a different operator. I'm not saying canceling the ferry and getting rid of the ferry. I'm talking about we shouldn't be in the business of running the ferry. And we have some very positive traction right now, and we potentially will be able to get that done, which will free up $1.5 million a year in our budget. So if you think about it, if the target is $20 million a year, we need more. That would be $1.5 million towards that $20 million, right? So when you calculate it, everything's all about trying to get to that $20 million a year. This is one of the opportunities that could help us get there. We have an airport that is a stranded asset. We all know that. And what you'll see in the 2030 vision is a new coordination we're going to do for the airport ferry to open up access to the airport and hopefully long-term create the airport into a better environment for our residents and for tourism and for economic development. Okay, so that is the bad news, the problems that we have, just so that we're all clear on that. Now, the 2030 vision. The 2030 vision, as I outlined in the beginning, huge community engagement process, created a new vision for the town, came up with some documents, and then the pandemic hit. And the whole point of 2030 is the industries and the province and the federal government and the city and the community working together as one entity to solve the problems that we're all collectively facing. You know, I don't want to poo-poo too much on the provincial government because the provincial government's actually been very supportive for us. In fact, they have done a lot for us. And the cap, yes, is a problem, and I'm going to be upset about that because it's very frustrating. But they are a very important partner for us and have been very supportive for us. And we've worked very closely with the province, and they know a lot about our challenges and are there for us. So I want to make that clear. But I'm still going to be mad about the caps because it's ridiculous. Okay. If I was running again, I probably wouldn't talk like that. So the last thing I want to say about this is that we're in a time now where the expectation of what a standard of community should look like is up here because you can travel anywhere now in the world. So you go to any community and you see the things we don't have, and then you come home to Rupert and you're like, oh, look at that, look at this, look at that. And so the expectation now is when people come here for work from Vancouver, for wherever they're going to be, you know, they want to see a community that is at a certain standard and a certain level. And we all know the community is just not there. It's just not. So the 2030 is all about rebuilding the town, the new amenities, new services, new projects, new revitalization, things to do. places to go, you know, a place where you feel like there's lots of opportunity to have fun and raise your kids. And the idea is to have everybody work together to build that. So 2030 is a plan in motion. So I'm going to talk about all the incubation projects, we'll call them, that are happening around the town. And these are the projects that we're seeding all over the town to make the program go, right? That's the whole plan here. The whole plan is to try to make the program go in all directions all at the same time. I like to think of it like this. We have to focus on the foundation of this community, like infrastructure and those things, but we also are building a house at the same time while we're building the foundation. And we have to paint the walls, and we have to put new furniture in there and fix the foundation all at the same time. People say to me, well, why don't you just fix the water and do all that and then don't worry about all that other stuff? I'm like, well, we can have gold-plated pipes under the ground and still have derelict buildings on top of them. What's the point? You need to kind of do both. So we are doing both all at the same time. And I think this is the part where it's going to get you a little bit more excited. Okay, first up is the Gateway Project. So this is one of our flagship projects in the downtown core. This is the area of focus that we're focusing on. This is the new RCMP station here with the Jehovah's Witness building, Credit Union building. This is the old DQ. This is the dip behind there. This is the empty parking lot across from there. We have an MOU with all the property owners here to jointly develop this whole intersection. We're working with highways, we're working with BC Housing, and what the idea to do with this site is to build a mixed-use site that has residential, commercial, and community amenity associated to it. So the future of downtowns is not retail. The future of downtowns for small communities like ours is experiences. So that's what we need to focus on now. You go downtown to do something, to bring community together, to gather people, and then the retail shops around that will be more successful. The 20th century is all about, let's just build a big line of stores and hopefully people show up. Well, online shopping, all that kind of stuff. We have AI automation. All these things are disrupting, and we're just not going to be able to compete with that. So the future is experiences. Gateway Projects is all about having people living in this area, working in the area, and then being able to play in this area. And so we've been working with developers from the Urban Development Institute. We've been doing presentations. We've been bringing people up here. And we are working with the credit union. Just a caveat, credit union is doing their own project. They're working on their own building, but collaborating with us on this project. And if we can't get a developer in time, well, they're going to go ahead and do their own thing and build their own building. So credit union is independent, but they are, through the MOU, are working with us to help jointly develop this. We have 6 interested parties in the community that are willing to take a look at this site, but this is going to be a bigger challenge. One of the key recommendations from the 2030 plan was to develop this intersection. If this happens, it begins the spurring of the development market in Prince Rupert. But what we have to do to get it going is we need partners to come in to de-risk the project. So you need people to invest, $5 million, $10 million, another $3 million, and everyone comes together to help bring the cost of the project down, economies of scale, get something built so that we can prove Rupert's a place that developers can come and build. That's the idea with Gateway, and this project's still moving forward. We're retooling, and we're going to put another RFP out for interested parties based on some new transfers of land that have happened here. And this is a very exciting area. This is going to be the new downtown for the community. The next area of focus is the Marina District, which we've now branded the Marina District. This is Cow Bay, right here, the existing Cow Bay. So the new downtown, if you think about where City Hall is, City Hall down to Cow, well, not even City Hall actually. I would say from like where the Totem Theater is down towards Cow Bay and the Marina District is going to be the new central downtown. So Cow Bay, Marina District, and the new Gateway area will be kind of where we want the retail to be, and we want to focus businesses into those locations. This is a concept map of the Marina District. You may have noticed that 3rd Avenue, we've been working behind Rona on Lot 9, and if you've been down at George Hills Way, you've been seeing the clearing there. We're opening up that space now, taking a look at what's there. We're starting to work with some developers, and we want to work with mixed commercial and residential. The Prince Rupert Legacy owns all of Lot 9, which goes from Cow Bay all the way down to George Hills Way, where the coastal propane is. Massive potential for housing there. You can actually build 8 stories there. There's no height issues. There's no houses that block view. And that's a very, very big opportunity for new waterfront development and extending Cow Bay. You know, we're looking at building behind Cow Bay in that little slough there. Some like boardwalk areas, boardwalks on the waterfront. This is the Pattison project. They're engaged with this area, looking to do some investments in this community now too that way. And so this is another huge opportunity for this community for revitalization. That bridge that's down at Cow Bay needs to basically get closed down. The load, it can't carry heavy loads, and it's an old wooden trestle bridge. So why we need to do that extension is basically to create that as a pedestrian bridge and make that the new access behind Rona there, and to open up. And that's where we're also looking to expand the parking for Cow Bay as well. So for those who are frustrated with Cow Bay parking, we're looking to do parking lot down there. So Marina District is moving forward. We've got lots of interest down there. It's going to be a much more easier area to develop, and that's a very exciting opportunity as part of our 2030 plan. Waterfront, another great opportunity. So the waterfront project, which is down at Quinitza, has raised $30 million between as a provincial government project with us, with Kitkatla in particular, and that is to relocate the airport ferry and build a new ferry terminal for Kitkatla and get them a new ferry for the waterfront. Here's a concept plan of that area. So this would be the new Kitkatla water, break there, and that's where their ferry would be. You know, we're going to be relocating the airport ferry down here. We've already got a grant for that. That's already underway. The designs are already happening for that. We've invested in the CN building that's already being gutted. Wheelhouse is going to go in there. We're looking at clearing out this whole area, increasing parking, new foliage. This will happen over phases. Right now, the money that's there is only for this dock and a new ferry for Kitkatla. So this marina is an idea. It's not confirmed. This says concept plan. So this is all about possibilities. But we need to activate the waterfront. In 2020, we did a bid for the CN station. One bid came back, which was the Wheelhouse. We accepted the bid. This is what the new CN station roughly will look like. It'll look better than that. That's just a rendering. And they're going to be moving in there early 2023. What that's going to feature, up here, new terrace area covered. You'll be able to overlook the water, have beer, Stonefire pizza. Later, we'd like to build a patio at the back, covered, so you can sit there on the water. That's where the ferry will come when you're coming in from the town now. And in the concept plan, you'll see we are even looking at maybe even relocating the ferry check-in area down here, where you would check into Air Canada here, wait, have a beer, have some pizza, and then get on a ferry here, then go straight to the airport from there. Longer term, what we're looking to do is what's called the PRACA, the Prince Rupert and Area Corridor Analysis, where we actually want to have this ferry go directly across the harbor to Salt Lakes with a road to Metlakatla, a small bridge at Venn Passage to the airport, and that is probably the most realistic way we would ever get driving access to the airport. When we did the first assessment of that, it was about $90 million. In today's dollars, you're probably looking at like $150 million for that. So I'm not going to hold my breath on that, but this project is part of phase 1 of that bigger project to get vehicle access to the airport. We're going to hold that vision. The next council needs to continue pushing that vision, and that's a marathon because we've been talking about bridge to the airport forever. But that is probably our best shot, and we are actually working with Metlakatla on that, and we have engaged with them, and we've had joint meetings with them, with the province, on this project. So transportation-wise, this is the beginning of re-coordinating and activating the waterfront. Here's a picture of inside the CN building right now. It's being gutted. It was going to be ready for October, but now it's probably 2023. We're having supply chain issues right now and getting materials and things like that here, so we're going to have to wait for certain things to come in. But this is going to be great news for this community, and we're going to start to incubate the waterfront, and over time, fully develop it. Seal Cove, great success. This is a part of the PRPA's habitat restoration project from the Ridley Rail corridor connection. They spent $4 million doing habitat restoration in the Seal Cove area. We worked with them in partnership to say, like, let's develop a community space. We managed to work together, and now it's open. I think many of you have been down there. It's a great little place now to go for a walk. The new Yaga coffee shop has opened up there, and over time, we're actually looking at, in the housing section, you saw a map, up in this area here, looking on building homes up in here, and building that new subdivision around up in there so that you could come down here and create a new kind of area for the community, a livable area. So that is done and moving forward, and thank you to the port. And this is what happens when you start to work together to solve problems for this community. Midtown. So as I mentioned, we have a new downtown, and now we're going to move forward with Midtown, which will go from, so you see City Hall is here, down towards Five Corners. So what we don't want to do with this area anymore is we don't want to encourage commercial development down here anymore. We want to focus more on housing development in the downtown. So this we want to make as a downtown neighborhood over time. It doesn't mean there won't be little shops and things. There's already things that are existing there. But the idea long term is to develop this into a housing area for the community, and we've created incentives in this area to make that happen. Right now we have a couple incubation projects happening. You know, the old Empress building is 100% coming down. Sonu, who owns City Furniture, is definitely doing that. He also owns that white building next to it. That's also coming down. He's got some ideas and plans of that. I can't say what's going to happen there, but it'll be good. Across the street, we did the Eat Street. Over time, we're going to develop that better, make it look nicer, put some lighting, that kind of thing. Stuck on Design purchased the old Shoppers. You're seeing them doing the restoration work right now on the outskirts, so they're moving in there. The GitGat just did a new building envelope for their area there. So there is movement now on Midtown. And what we want to do with these areas like Marina District, Midtown, New Downtown, is we want to create themes, districts, so that when you go there, you have different lighting, different flags that hang from the pole. It makes you feel like you're actually in a different location in the community. So think about it this way. This is a vision that's emerging. And right now you drive downtown, you go, oh, this building's this building's that. But the way we look at it is how do we emerge on a vision like that? So we have the plan and the policies and the rules in place to enable this to happen. So if you can imagine now the Marina District, and you can imagine the Gateway, and you can imagine Midtown, then you can start to imagine how this community is going to actually look long term. You know, we're going to connect Seal Cove. Now they have the Rushbrook Trail through the partnerships with Can Trails and CN and the port, connecting to the Bobs on the Rocks area. That will go right to the waterfront. You'll walk up to the new downtown area. That will hopefully be the new Gateway. And then you'll come into the Midtown, which will be neighborhoods, parks, right, that kind of thing in this area, a little bit more quiet. You know, this is happening, and we're moving forward with all these projects all at the same time. Okay, next part is we created a new brand for this community to celebrate the Coast-Simchang culture and to capture the City of Rainbows message, to try to create a timeless brand that was going to withstand the you know, economic ebbs and flows of this community. Thanks to Tourism Prince Rupert, they've worked really closely, and they had received a bunch of grants, and these are the new wayfinding that you'll be seeing all over the community coming soon. So these are the final designs. These will be all over the town, telling you where to go. You'll see them in different areas in the community. We're going to be creating 2 new Welcome to Rupert signs, which I know seems redundant, but we aren't paying for that. It's free money from the government. We might as well take it. So those are going to be at the highway and at the BC Ferries terminal. And so if you think about it, think about the districts. Think about them with the new lights. Think about them with the new flags. Think about these signs around town. Think about the streetscapes with benches and parks in the downtown. And think about that. Imagine that. That's what you need to do to see the vision. You have to imagine what it's like to be in that community in 2030. That's what we're working towards. So the next thing I want to talk about, and I know you're going to love this part, is the physical revitalization. We've got derelict buildings. We've got derelict vehicles. We've got residential properties that are dumps. We've got garbage. We've got all that stuff. And we have a plan now to address that. In fact, we have sent dozens and dozens of remediation orders, wreck and removal orders. We are at 100% moving forward on enforcement now. We've given carrots, we've given opportunities, and now it's time for people to start moving forward on their properties. Now, just on the note of that, because people come up to me all the time, what about these properties? We got to. Well, there's legal issues. You can't just walk in there and say, do that. We have to go through a process, and that process takes resources from us, takes time from us, it takes getting involved with judges because people think we're targeting them and then that we're treating them unfairly. I mean, we've spent $70,000 before on just one case from one person on one issue, which we ended up resolving. But do you feel like that's what we as a city should be doing, is spending that kind of taxpayer dollars just fighting people? Not really. Right? So we have to go through a process to allow us to get to the point where we can do the enforcement. We're there now. You have to send a certain amount of letters. You have to give a certain amount of notice. You have to do all those things to get someone to actually comply. And if they don't comply, we do have the right to go on their property and tear their building down. But you have to understand that's a hostile move, right? Yeah, I guess that's clappable. Get them. So just understand from our perspective, we try to give everybody a reasonable opportunity to get there. There are building owners that are not complying, and they will be complying shortly. I can guarantee you that. Now, let's take a look at the new streetscapes. First one, 3rd Avenue. So we have a parking problem downtown because people don't want to walk 1 block to their location. Sorry, I just had to say that. In Vancouver, you'll walk 10 blocks, but here, yeah. But we do have a parking problem, in all seriousness. So first things first, we're doing a parking plan. We're looking at doing a parking lot, a big parking lot in the Midtown, in the new downtown, and the Marina District. So creating 3 new parking areas. But also we're looking at reorienting the streetscapes. So this is what, so far, is a concept plan for 3rd Avenue. So you're coming down this way, you would have angle parking on one side of the street. We'd increase parking by 30, potentially 40% of parking on 3rd Avenue. You would put boulevards or bullouts on all the corners to create smaller crosswalks, including with accessibility in mind for all of this for folks with mobility issues and things like that. So the strategy, because as you heard from the challenges, we don't got the cash to do that. The strategy is to work in partnership and develop one intersection at a time, working from the Gateway project all the way down, right? So 1 year, hopefully we do one section, another section, and it's going to take till 2030. That's why it's 2030. And over time, we can rebuild the streetscapes. Unless, again, we have that magic money bag that just falls down on the ground, we can do it all at once. But that might be a challenge. So this is what we're thinking for 3rd Avenue. Now, this next part is new information, and we're going to reveal it here today. 2nd Avenue. So here's the opportunity for 2nd Avenue. We have a connector road that's being built from the Port Authority that where all the container traffic is going to go through Ridley Island. They won't be coming into the downtown anymore. We've been in discussions, heavy discussions right now with Highways. In fact, Highways is looking to do some investments in this community, and I can't speak to those yet, but they're going to be exciting. But once those truck traffic's gone, they've tentatively have said, look, you don't need to have a 4-lane highway. In fact, we will potentially allow you as a city to have access and have some level of control over 2nd Avenue, which would be a huge opportunity for us. Because what we want to do with 2nd Avenue is make it more of a 2-lane opportunity now. So this is outside of the Ocean Center Mall. That's That's the MLA's office right there, who, by the way, Jen, I'm so sorry. She is a very big supporter of us. She works really hard with us, works with our staff. I know I crapped on the caps. She is very much helping with the caps. Disclaimer. Okay? Because, yeah, I would feel awkward if I was sitting in the presentation. And just so you know, she is actually helping us with that. She has her challenges in her own government and stuff. So anyways, so you would have a boulevard kind of bus stop area for this, angled parking. This would be one road. That would be one road, a boulevard down the middle of 2nd Avenue, or regular parking there basically, and then a bike lane that would like go through the entire town basically, and considering doing that on 3rd Avenue as well. Now, one of the opportunities how we can get this funded is that the province is really moving forward on active transportation. They really want they're really investing in active transportation. So part of us getting money for this is applying for grants, which we've done, to get the cash to be able to do this kind of work. This would be exciting because this finally gives us the chance to make the town look and feel a certain way. And if we focus the development around Gateway to start, maybe moving up to the Chevron, you'll see nice trees in the boulevard. We want to change all the sidewalkscapes there, the new bollards, make it safe, make it bikeable. I think complete streets for Prince Rupert's in the audience. I'm hoping you're liking this. You can give me a critique in the Q&A. So we're presenting this to the highways in July. This has not been approved, but this is what we're moving forward to do. So new streetscapes, new incubation projects in every part of the town, already moving forward. It's exciting stuff. Policy updates. I really want to call Councillor Moreau to the audience up here right now. Actually, just joking. He won't come up here. I have to speak to this. So we created a vision, and in that vision document, you see like this is going to go there, and that's going to go there, and it was very prescriptive, I would say, and some people misinterpreted it as that was absolute. And the truth is, we're going to get what we're going to get. We're going to get whatever developer wants to come and do. We're not, you know, one of the ideas was like a pool on the waterfront down in Marina. I said, well, that's all Madison project property. Are they going to build a pool? I doubt it. So what we needed to do was make the vision more, you know, general and make it law. So what we had to do with a new official community plan, update all our bylaws. We created tax exemptions in the downtown, 10 5-year tax exemptions. We waived all the fees for development in the downtown to make this happen. We've got policies for clustering businesses in the downtown. We've eased parking requirements for new developments. We have the 15 housing actions in place, and we've updated pretty much every single policy this town has to make sure that the environment is there for these developers to come. So anyone that says that City Hall is closed for business, you know, that's, you know, 2012, folks. Time to update your mind that we're now actually open for business. We're selling properties. We're doing all kinds of stuff now. The policies are in place to enable the vision to become reality. Okay, so parks and transportation. I talked about transportation. We're putting a survey out there. You'll be able to comment on that stuff. But the parks piece here, we're doing a parks master plan. There'll be an engagement process for that. Nick 80, a big proponent of that. And we need more recreation opportunities in this community. There's nothing for people to do recreationally in the community in some ways. You know, we need more basketball courts. We need more outdoor opportunities. We like more parks. We need all kinds of stuff like that. So we're going to put a plan in place to create a parks plan and create a budget on how we can achieve the goals of actually increasing the recreation. And at the end, part of my good news update here, and you'll hear how we're going to try to scale up some better recreation opportunities. Another part of the 2030 is the recruitment and retention program. So we actually have a program in place, in fact, 2 programs in place. One of them is being run by the Port Authority. It's the Make Prince Rupert Home initiative. Essentially what we're doing is we are advertising across Canada in theaters and in all kinds of areas, and we're making Prince Rupert attractive. We don't show them the derelict buildings and the derelict vehicles, and we show them the one day of sun that we have. Then they get tricked and they come here. Just joking. Lots of great things about this town. What happens with this is there's actually a number someone calls, and I think Krista Ediger from the Port Authority manages this program, if I'm not mistaken. Yes? Yeah? Okay. Is that her? Okay. You should come up here and talk about this. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but the idea is that, when people are coming here, the problem that we've had is people come, they bring a spouse, the spouse might not fall in love with the place, they want to leave. So what we need to create is a program for when someone wants to come here, we match them to a job, working with small business on this as well, and the industries. We try to match their partner into a job as well. We try to get them involved in the community so that and help them find schools for their children, try to help them find daycare. It's a welcoming kind of program. We're trying to make that the reality for this so that it's an integration piece. We need people to come and want to fall in love with the place, and we have to put effort into that. We can't just let people come here and go, figure it out. That is a very intentional thing that we've launched with the 2030, and this is how we're going to start to recruit across Canada, bring those employees in. However, as I mentioned earlier, it won't go anywhere unless the housing and childcare pieces come together, right? And we'll talk about the projects that are coming to this community and the opportunity that is ahead of us. But housing, childcare is a massive part of the recruitment and retention piece for this community. And there's probably people in this audience right now that are having housing struggles as well. There's another retention program that's happening. We worked with the Northwest communities. It's called the Northwest BC Workforce and Resident Attraction Program, and actually won an award. And not only do we have our own internal Rupert recruitment program, but we have a regional recruitment program as well, where we're working with Terrace and Kitimat and a couple other communities to bring people to the area and market the area as well, including Port Ed, who's here tonight, by the way. Hint, hint at our last piece of our meeting here tonight. Okay. The opportunities. So, you heard me complain about the Port Property Tax Act, but the truth is we have some opportunities right now that are really going to help us propel to the forward. And I just want to say one thing. After being here for 8 years, the municipal finance model is busted. It is a 18th century archaic model. We are only allowed to collect money from property taxes. That is the law of Canada, and that is not how it works in everywhere else in the world. In fact, municipalities across the world have 21 mechanisms of raising funds for themselves and have much more independence, but in Canada, that's just not how it works here. So right now, there's, I would say, a renaissance of mayors and cities that are working together to change legislation on the model, because we need to. Otherwise, the province is responsible for all of us, and they don't want to be in that position either. So there's a program that we launched called Fiscal Futures through the UBCM, and we put a report together through all the municipalities, and it's in the finance ministry right now. And if we can open up the books to get more than just property taxes, then the cities in all of BC will be able to start collecting revenue in other sources other than property tax. Because the problem with property tax is it puts us in a conflictual relationship with every member of the community, of anyone who owns any sort of structure. So naturally, it's hard for you to get on our team because we have to collect money from your property to do work in the community. And that makes it tough for us to collaborate because I have to pull money from you to do things. And that's not a situation I don't think long-term that communities should be in. So the challenge is, how do we raise more money without raising taxes? First opportunity is the RBA. So this is a joint initiative between every community from Haida Gwaii all the way to Vanderhoof, every regional district, and we are looking to do a revenue sharing agreement with the provincial government based on all the port and forestry and mining industries in the area. Right now, all that revenue goes to the provincial government and then doesn't necessarily come back to us. We have had some grants. We had the Northern Capital grants. Some money came in, 100 million, then another 50 million. But the reality is, what we're looking for, if I will just say it straight, is we need 100 million a year coming in for the next 20 years at least for the region. And we would get a portion of that. And our portion would work out to be about maybe 6 to 10 million a year, depending on the allocation model. RBA is 100% number one top priority for the region. We just met with Nathan Cullen and his entire finance team came up here in I think May. We went to Terrace, we brought all the communities together, we reiterated the need for this, but if we got this, then we are looking at getting between 6 to 10 million a year for Rupert. So if we get the ferry, that's another 1.5 for that 20. If we get this, that's 6 to 10 towards that 20. You know, now we're at maybe 10 million a year coming in. Now we're starting to move. This has to happen. 100% has to happen. And I know Jen Rice is an advocate for this, and we got to keep working on this, but there are challenges to getting this done because we had a pandemic and all governments spent beyond their means in the pandemic, and money that might have been there is no longer there. But LNG Canada and other opportunities are coming online that are hundreds of millions a year coming to the provincial government, and we're going to try to capture some of that money into an agreement. And if this happens, we're going to start to see the community moving forward in a very quick way. The next opportunity, Watson Island. I won't lie, I have cried over this island before. The previous mayor called it a hellhole. He was not wrong. You know, the first 4 years of the term was basically us with this island. I actually went to court for this island. I was the only guy in the stands. It wasn't very exciting, clearly. And I remember talking to the judge about this project and our legal cases. And, you know, we had to do a lot to maneuver this community out of the 2 legal situations we were in on that island. And we were very creative and we were very aggressive as well. And we took control of the situation and we got those legal battles done. And then our team, with Richard Pucci and Corinne Bombin and Bob Long, we actually invented a new reclamation process that the province is now adopting on how to clean up a brownfield site. So what we're doing is one site at a time we're going to do assessments on. Before, the challenge with Watson Island was everyone thought you had to clean up the whole island and then you can get development. Well, we said, well, why can't we just clean up this portion to start, and as we move along, we go one thing at a time. And that's what we did. We invented that. And that's a process that the province is adopting and going to be moving into other brownfield sites. So here's Pembina on Watson Island. Prince Rupert Legacy holds the island for us, collects lease payments from Pembina. And as you can see, there's lots of other room and opportunity. And I think over time, we can get 6 proponents, maybe even more, on that island that could generate, I believe, the 10 to 20 million a year you would need to run the community. Now, the thing about the opportunity with Watson Island is we collect lease payments and taxes from the island. It's a double dip for us. Now, previously, they were going to try to sell Watson Island for $5 million. Well, if you had a marine export industry on here, you'd get capped and you'd maybe get a few dollars, but then you'd be stuck. Us owning this island is 100% what is saving our butts right now as a community, and it's thanks to city staff, council's vision, and working with the province, particularly the Ministry of Environment, who are like basically on speed dial with us right now. These people have helped us get this going, and now this is in operation. You saw the first ship come in April, and what was once our burden is now our opportunity. So, thank you. So between the RBA, between Watson Island, between, you know, maybe getting rid of the ferry and maybe even the caps, magically, Jen, get released from us. I know you were working on it. We had a good meeting actually with the finance department, and hopefully we can get resolution. And we're going to the UBCM this year in September to see if we can figure something out. But, you know, if we can get the caps removed and we can get the RBA going and we can fully develop Watson Island, we are looking at 20 more million a year coming into the town, hands down. In fact, it could be up to 30 more million a year, long term. It's going to take time to get there, though. So what I'm asking from the community right now is some patience, basically. I hope you're seeing the building blocks coming together, how it all kind of fits, rather than like see the forest, I guess what I'm saying, from just seeing the trees. We are going to work out of this situation we're in. And not only are we going to work out of it, but we're going to be one of the most successful small communities in all of Canada. Like, no community has this opportunity. They're all sitting there struggling. I bet many mayors, they're like, how do we make money? We're stuck on taxes. We are lucky that we have this, and this is saving us right now. The next things that are saving us I told you I was going to end on a good note. Oh. Nope. So, my next slide after this is another thing that's saving us, but I'll talk about this. This is the projects that are coming, okay? So we have, right now, this is a site of Vopak, bulk liquids facility on Ridley Island. Probably in 2023, we're going to hear a final investment decision from them. You know, that's $1 billion investment to the community. We have Wolverine terminals right now that's being under construction. We have 2 major export logistics facility wanting to be constructed, one on Ridley, one on South Canada Islands with Metlakatla. And as you have all seen, or you may have not seen, that DP World wants to potentially build a whole nother container facility at almost the same scale they have now down where they are now on Barrett Point on Ridley. So we're talking, you know, I'm not even sure actually at this point what the numbers are for DP World. Maybe Krista has those numbers in terms of jobs, but it's probably over 1,000 something jobs for sure. So you're looking at another 1,000 jobs, more, and these are all going to have jobs, and the growth is there, folks. These are not make-believe projects. These are reasonable projects for the community. And the trajectory right now is we're at 13,000 people now. If all of these projects go, and we also manage to figure out the housing and childcare problem, then we're looking at the town coming to about 19,000 people by 2027. So 13,000 to 19,000 people based on existing growth, based on these projects, based on the economic opportunities currently facing us. So that's the opportunity that we have ahead of us. And the challenge is coming together to make sure we can get the pieces in place to enable this to go. The other opportunity that we have ahead of us is I want to talk a little bit about our municipal enterprises, Legacy and City West. City West, we'll start with City West. City West, you know, I won't lie, was a sleepy company for a while. But the provincial government and the federal government invested in City West in a partnership with Strathcona Regional District to build the Connected Coast Project, which is to build a fiber line basically from Prince Rupert, Haida Gwaii, all the way down Central Coast, all the way around Vancouver Island, and connect to Vancouver to create a redundant fiber line for us. Remember how the internet just went down? That won't happen again once Connected Coast is done, because we only have one line right now that goes from Rupert to Prince George. This will be the backup line for the internet along the ocean. City West is leading the charge on that. This is our new CEO, Stefan Wolzen. Massive vision, massive leadership. City West, when I first came in, it was, I think, 7 communities, and now they're potentially expanding into 40. They're going all in Vancouver Island, all along the Central Coast. They've been partnering with First Nations like the Haida Nation, with Kitkatla, with the Tahltan, and they're creating all kinds of new opportunities. And we own this company. And City West long-term is on a trajectory of creating a new dividend situation for us where we may be able to create more revenue for the community. Now, you see this $800,000 check here. This is actually not a dividend. It's a loan payment from way long time ago, and that's what those are. We want to transfer that into actually becoming dividends for the community long-term. And City West is now an opportunity to create new revenue. But for now, we're going to leave that money in the company so it can grow and expand and get to where it needs to get to. But that's part of the vision of us, is starting to become more entrepreneurial, because as I mentioned, the taxation situation is a tricky one for us. And we have to figure out how to generate revenue without touching your taxes. And that's kind of what we think about when we're in these positions. The next thing I want to talk about is Legacy. Now, Legacy is a wholly owned company from the City of Prince Rupert. The board of directors is just our senior management team. It has no staff. It has no operations. It just holds land for us. And it holds Lot 9, Lot 444, which is across from Seal Cove. And it holds Watson Island, and it collects lease payments. And it gives us flexibility as a community to be able to generate revenue outside of the constraints of the municipal financing situation with the local government and stuff, and act and things like that. So Legacy is kind of like a holding company, and now we've transferred a bunch of subdivisions to it and housing, and we're going to help it do housing development as well. And so, there are some questions around transparency. People say, right, like, well, what's going on with Legacy? What are you guys doing with that? Well, I'm going to give you an example of what Legacy is doing, but just so you are clear, every financial statement of this company is on the internet, published on our website. You can see the income it makes. They're third-party audited. There's nothing crazy going on with it other than we're using it as a tool to make sure you're not having to pay massive taxes to do the things we need to do. And here's an example. So we had to put more money into the dam, $5.3 million. We ended up transferring that from Legacy to the city. If we didn't have Legacy and we didn't do Watson Island, we would have done a 175% increase to your taxes to get the dam built. So what happens if you can't actually do that? Well, we wouldn't do anything, actually, and that's why we weren't moving forward. You wouldn't raise taxes on account for 175%. And remember, we have a $600 million deficit. You cannot do that with taxes. So without Legacy, we can't offset and do the big builds and the big spends that we have to do. That's what offsets it. So if it means, some people questioning transparency versus saving the town, well, I'll choose saving the town over that. But it really doesn't do much other than making sure we can pay for the infrastructure that we do. It's a tool. Think of it that way. There's another example. We had to put some money into George Hills Way. We had to replace all the ferry pontoons. So we had to go and put $1.15 million into that, and that would have been a 9.3% tax increase that year just to do George Hills Way and some ferry pontoons. What would you have done? You would have said, we make bad decisions, we don't know what we're doing with the budget, fire them all, get them all out of there, and then the next council would come in and be just as stuck as we were. So this is how the opportunity for Legacy works for us. And another one, we had to do a $725,000 paving project at the airport road. That road was falling apart. It's our responsibility. We had to do it. So we did that, and we also had to pay part of our partnership for 2030 vision with our partnership, and that would have been another 3% tax increase just to do those things. So just to give you an example of how Legacy is used to offset your taxes so that we can do the infrastructures, we can do the projects, and you're not paying more. Because as you remember, we have the caps on our taxes on the industries. So for us, really the download goes to the residents and the small businesses. We're hyper cognizant of that, just so you know. People say, you guys love raising taxes. Well, to be quite frank with you, we haven't raised taxes in 5 years. We've kept taxes at zero because of this. Only this year did we do a 3-point-something% tax increase because of inflation, and the costs just got enormous, and we had an RCMP union contract that we had to pay for. And that's why taxes they're not good. They're not flexible. They're not the right model long term at a macroeconomic level. Okay, we're almost done here, folks. What time have we got here? I don't even have a clock. Some 8:45? Oh wow. Can't believe you're all listening to me still. It said 7 to 9, right? Okay, just to finish off. So for this is my leaving this part off for the community, right? We are not running on, many of us, and this community is going to be moving forward. So this is my recommendation, I would say, to the town. The only way we're going to move forward is if we are cooperating with our partners to build this community together. When I first started, there was really poor relationships, so I'll say it that way, across all sectors. Different partners fighting with different partners, us fighting with different people, and we spent a lot of time coming together. And we've signed a bunch of agreements, and we're working with First Nations, in particular, Lackalams and Kikatla, all have agreements moving forward with them, jointly developing the community. We're working with community partners, we're working with industries, and we have probably the best relationships we've ever had at this point moving forward, because we all hyper aware now of the challenges of housing and childcare and the income and the infrastructure, and we all need to work together to build it together. This isn't a city problem anymore. This is an all of us problem. We all need to band together to make this thing come alive. And the one tool that needs to happen to make that go is one of the key recommendations that came from the Rupert 2030 process was forming what was called the Vision Stewardship Council. And so what this is a group that would meet potentially quarterly of industry partners, First Nations, provincial government, that we would jointly co-manage the development of the 2030 vision together. So rather than this being a city council issue, this is a all of us issue. Everybody needs housing. Everybody needs childcare. We need more investments in the community. And the power of working together, where we all go to the province together, we all go to the feds together, we all lobby together, that is what will make this come alive. If we do not do this, which the discussions of this have re-engaged, it didn't go because of the pandemic. The pandemic really took the momentum from this particular component of the plan. But if we don't do this, the risk is this patchwork that we see now, right? We'll fix a water main break, we'll raise taxes 3%, we'll fix another water main, another 3%, we may get a little building built, we may get something little. For us to get that 200 million, to get the 20 to 30 more million a year in, to get the housing all over the place going, to scale to 1,000 plus units, you know, to bring in the big dollars to develop the Midtown and the Marina District and the new downtown, and to develop the waterfronts and to build housing all over the place, and all that stuff is going to be a group of people that stick together through this council over the next 10 years to make it reality. That's what has to happen for this to be successful. That is my final recommendation to this community, basically. If we do not stick to that, and the next council and mayor don't stick to that, I believe that's going to be a slug fest moving forward to get the community to where it needs to go to. We need the power of the industries, we need the power of the province, and we need to be sitting in the group, and we need to be co-managing the situation and jointly owning the future of this community. That is what I think needs to happen. Okay. Now for the announcement. And Port Ed is here. So why don't you come up here anyways? I'm gonna have a sip of water. Dwayne, you got the house lights? Yeah, thanks, buddy.
You know, I'm not accustomed to all these bright lights like you are, Lee.
Okay, so what you're going to witness is a wrestling match between the mayor of Prince Rupert and okay.
We're going to go 3 rounds, Olympic rules, no headgear.
Yes, exactly. He'd probably destroy me. Okay, so we're going to do it this way. I'll caveat, we haven't crossed the T's and dotted the I's, and that's coming, but we wanted to make sure that the community knew that we have solved what I believe is a 40-year issue between Port Ed and Prince Rupert. If you remember at the Hayes 2.0 presentation, we did beat up on Port Ed a little bit about the revenue challenges and things like that on Ridley Island tax sharing agreement, but what we wanted to announce tonight is that we've come up with a framework now to move forward together. It's a 4-part agreement. One part's Ridley Island tax sharing agreement. The other one's about working together, mutual aid, fire agreements, water agreements. But one of the most important parts of it is a component which we call moving forward. And so what we're looking to do together now is to start jointly developing the region, because Port Ed actually has a lot of recreation opportunities. For example, like Diana Lake, we've been having discussions about working together to develop Diana Lake as a full provincial campground. Right, a full rebuild of Diana Lake, and working with the Bland out in Port Ed to do new recreation. We have motocross people that want to build new motocross tracks. We have all kinds of opportunities right now that both communities needed to sort out some of the stickiness from an agreement from 1981 that has put us at odds for all these years, which I think at this point we have now overcome that challenge. So we wanted to show that we're putting our issues to rest. We're working collaboratively. We've actually have been for a while. We just haven't been able to show the communities that. And I'm going to let Knut say any words that he wants to say about it.
Well, thanks, Lee. It's a credit to your leadership that's brought this all forward. It's also the credit to the staff at Port Edward and Prince Rupert. They worked an enormous amount of time putting these things together. You and I don't get into that kind of fine detail. At the end of the day, we put the big picture to get together and let the rest of the people fill in the blanks, because the blanks at the end of the day, they're not right. You know, it kills you. But, you know, when I look at Prince Rupert and Port Edward, I grew up in Prince Rupert, and I still got a big love for Prince Rupert. You know, it's probably growing up here got me to where I eventually went. And the other thing is that, you know, if we keep having squabbles, we can't move forward. To move forward, and Lee's 100% right, you have to take a conciliatory approach, and you got to look at what I always tell people when I was teaching at the college in Kamloops. You got to look for the common good, and I think that's what Lee's done. And with the presentation you made today about Prince Rupert, I can say my forefathers came here about the same time yours did, you know, 100 years ago. But we have to move forward from the original vision, and to move forward, you have to have a living document vision that gets to you somewhere and that people can buy into. I bought into this when you first made this presentation. I thought it was pretty unique. But anyway, Lee, I'll be sorry to miss you. I got to train it. If I'm elected this time, and of course Lee's not going to be here, I might have to train a new mayor of Prince Rupert. Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate it. Okay. All right. So that's the end of the presentation.